Hello, it's Nathan Jones here. I have something to clarify and get off my chest because apparently I can't get no answers for this situation, and the reason why I feel it's important is because a certain state's attorney decided to come out and say wants to be the attorney general for South Dakota, and there's a serious contradiction that needs to be resolved before said person is anywhere near that type of position. And this goes back to Kyle Nicole Jones versus South Dakota. And sorry for my daughter, but um, it's been really burdensome on me because I am the dad and I am also a computer guy. Um, been married for 20 plus years, and I met my wife in high school and worked really hard to, take care of my family and my kids and my 7 kids. And when COVID hit, we worked at this certain convenience store in Eureka, South Dakota, and um, uh, that January was in 2020 was tough for a lot of businesses, especially the stop. Now, at the end of the March, Trump already had instated the restaurant policies for health, health and whatnot. So I ended up getting laid off at the end of March. I filed for unemployment and I collected unemployment for roughly the rest of the year, and then I was like $10,000, and then I collected another 9,000. Well, here's where the problem arises. When I reapplied for the second extension, it ended up becoming a dispute between me and the fights, the previous owners of the stop. And the dispute was that they didn't like that they were paying me close to $20,000. And please excuse Ethan in the background. He's autistic and gonna make his weird noise. I apologize for that. But anyways, the unemployment, I was paid a total of it was $19,574 and some change, somewhere around there. So let's just say $20,000 that they ended up paying me. Well, on May 18th, they were served. The former employer, was served documents for the federal claim to appear over the phone on January 11th of 2022 with an administrative judge. I ended up winning, of course. Well, that's where the trouble began. Is because I ended up winning, and because he was paying me this money, and because all the employees at the stop vouched for me because I worked the night shift and she worked the mornings, and we would trade off because of our kids, including the fact that we were also collecting aid because it was COVID. A lot of families were hurting. And so they ended up calling the police. They called the police on May 27th, and they made a police report and said Kyle Nicole Jones stole. And I kid you not, that was the police report. There's 20 plus employees there. Hadn't even investigated, nothing. Hadn't even talked to me. They already had my bank account. I'm the owner. Kyle was just the person underneath me at Great Plains Bank. So by the time we figured this out, it was in August that they had my account, and they were looking through it for like 4 months. So They called the police week after I served them my unemployment claim. Then the sheriff, David Ackerman, decades of experience, which was weird because his police report was dated the same day the warrant when they called. So when they called the police and reported this $20,000 thievery from that busted ass ATM machine, the ATM machine that ran on dial-up, they proceeded to say that money was stolen from that, and they believed them. Kid you not, they believed them without even asking me or Kyle. And then they sidelined me because they knew that I had receipts for that $20,000, which no matter the amount of time I tried to show them, I was ignored. And when I tried to get an explanation, because I am the dad, the father, and it's my kids, and it's my money and my property, I was still ignored. So they basically treated a joint account as a single account and call that logical and ethical. And there's a serious issue to that because I hate contradictions. I cannot stand them. I can't stand them. And I was not even allowed as a dad or a father or someone who won an employment claim to speak on his own property. So May 27th, they call the police, and let's say 20 days later, there was a warrant for a one-name person, Kyle, for a joint bank account, Nathan Jones, Joseph Jones, and Kyle, for a one-name warrant bank account. And they used that against Kyle and left me alone. I didn't get charged. I didn't get questioned. Nothing. So, how is it, logically, that a person that's innocent, me, right, has the receipts for said money, tried multiple times to show the overlapping timelines, that there was a disgruntled employer that lost a claim of $20,000 and is now trying to use law enforcement, it seems, to have a claim that makes no sense because it's a joint bank account. We both have equal access. And I am the owner. I put the money in the bank account. Why was I not involved? I was the night manager, and I was a trusted employee at the stop. Why was I not allowed to speak or explain or defend my joint bank account that contained my own wages and unemployment benefits and family funds? Why? I was also as a lawful co-owner of the joint account. Why do they treat my property rights as invisible while using the same exact account to accuse my wife? So the state's saying that Kyle stole her husband's money without even asking why a business owner would come with an accusation 9 to 10 months later after business is closed, mind you. The federal unemployment administrative law judge already ruled on January 11th that I won the claim, it was valid in my favor. So why was I barred, or why was I not allowed to present these receipts to show that I had proof before any criminal charges were filed? Why? Why would you not allow the father to defend the rights of his children, especially my disabled son Ethan, which had protected benefits, but in the light of this situation, they didn't really give a shit. And then when the employers left, allegations surfaced right after I won my unemployment. So this is 10 days. 10 days. Come on. 10 days. Why was my property and my wife and my family's reputation on the line, never given a single opportunity to respond or provide any of my financial endeavors or anything? Like knock on my door and say, hey, Nathan, your employer is saying you stole $20,000 from an ATM that used dial-up. But at first it was 114,000. There was 7 different alleged amounts. It was 114,000, 64,000, 34,000, 14,000, 17,000, 22,000 from Austin Hoffman, 17,000 from Sheriff David Ackerman. What was it? 14,000 from Mark Luswick or whatever his name was from DCI. All these random numbers, but they didn't want to hire a professional investigator to figure out these numbers because why? Yeah, I mean, there's children involved, but why wouldn't you want to at least make sure, the kids are safe and you're not ruining a family? Because I'm over here trying to man the fort. I do computers, but my son Ethan is extremely autistic and it's expensive, trying to pay someone to watch your children. And there's consequences, I believe, that's leaving your kids 8 hours a day with a stranger. No offense to babysitters, but they intend to endow their own beliefs into your kids, So if you can be home with your kids, it is advisable, especially with some of the beliefs we have today. And this is why I take this stuff very seriously, because if we're American, then the core value is property, liberty, and the rights to defend yourself. And if I can't even defend my own bank account and my own money, then what's the point, Rights are only as good as the people that are enforce them allow to enforce them. We say as Americans we have rights, but what does that mean? If the people that manage those rights don't really care to even allow you to speak on your own property, then what good are those rights? Those are the ones that are supposed to enforce them and make sure those rights follow the rules and procedures. But when you have a contradiction, in this case, my property matters to Kyle, but it doesn't matter to me. So in the same sense, either the property of my bank account stole the money, it got legs and walk up and stole the money because I was never vetted or questioned, and then blaming it on an innocent person like Kyle, really took a number on our family. And why is it that a year before this even came about, Henry T. Berry Hill, the person that had reaped a lot of issues in our town, was on probation for 3 years and then did some pretty, shitty, it's hard to say, pretty pedoistic acts. But they chose to blame Kyle and not even give and make me an innocent person, right? So my property matters simultaneously why I don't matter. So it's cash is stolen when I touch it, or I'm sorry, cash is stolen when Kyle touches it, but not stolen when I touch it. Like, how does that make sense? Like, they didn't trace any funds, they didn't segregate any funds, they didn't hire any professionals to make sure the funds weren't from the illegitimate source, like a bank robbery or a inheritance funds. I was even told blatantly to my face from a supposedly respectable lawyer attorney or public attorney or whatever. I'm just going to say his initials by the name of DK, said that because my bank account had a lot of money and I had no job, I was a thief, basically. How does one come to the conclusion with all the type of self-employed people these days, would you conclude that because someone's unemployed, they're a thief? When I won an unemployment lawsuit claim in $20,000, if I had no job, then how did I win an unemployment claim? That makes no sense. That's why you don't assume. It seems very discriminatory to assume just because someone's at home taking care of their family. Maybe they don't like that I'm a stay-at-home dad. I don't know. But the reality is I worked there. I sued the employer, and they ended up silencing me because they didn't want this information to come about, that they lost $20,000 to me, and they try to blame it on Kyle because they knew that they put me on that stand, which I even told me I would take Kyle's place in a heartbeat. They didn't at all. And even to the fact that after Kyle was interviewed, they went down to, Dennis the fights went down to Sue's work when she worked at manufacturing down here the road, and proceeded to talk about the case with her less than 24 to 48 hours after Kyle was interrogated. So why was Dennis Feist, the very employer who made the roughly one day after they were interrogated, allowed to speak directly to Kyle's mother? Like, he's not a deputy. Why? Like, why was he allowed to do this? And if anybody wants to see the interview, it's on my YouTube channel, and you can see it. Like, he's questioning and telling Sue to make her daughter confess and make her daughter do all this stuff that's very intimidating. And what possible legitimate investigative reason existed for the accuser, Dennis Feist, to have private contact to the interrogated person's mother within 24 to 48 hours of the interrogation? Like, what authority does he have? And these are all the questions I try to ask Austin Hoffman and Sheriff David Ackerman, anybody, to give me a logical, coherent reasoning with these, because using someone's bank account, a joint bank account, a husband's financials against his wife without giving the husband a voice is pretty shady. Almost feels like some banana and rice shit going on here, in my opinion. Especially why I'm bringing this up, because my family is about to embark on another endeavor of opening a restaurant, and it gives me PTSD that this situation can arise again, and the same people that are in charge will try to do some kind of loophole accusation again, no different than bananas and rice with our neighboring state, if you get what I'm saying, the Tim Waltz type of choices, It all makes sense. A property can be used simultaneously, make sense, but not make sense, I guess. I guess the laws of non-contradiction don't matter in the state of South Dakota. Like, what else do we have? If the case was under active investigation, right? Why was the complaining witness permitted to contact the family of the person being investigated? Why did the sheriffs allow Dennis, the owner, to go to my mother-in-law's work and say all this mean stuff, even say that he despises me, and even made a police report that I threatened him to unalive him, and still didn't investigate me? Investigated Kyle. Think about that. They investigated Kyle, even though they didn't even ask me a question about why you would say you're unalive this person. Like, what? Like, nothing. I was just made to not exist. Does allowing the employer to speak to Kyle's mother the day after interrogation suggest coordination, intimidation, or attempt to influence the accounts? Accounts? Co-owner? My wife? None of which Nathan Jones was ever permitted to do in his own defense? Like, they allow Dennis to go there and interrogate my mother-in-law, and I have this on video, but yet I can't even defend my family, my mother-in-law, who's been more of a mother than my own mother. That's a whole nother issue. But, you know, I may seem like an ass, but I hate contradictions. I just can't, especially when it comes to the well-being of kids and the well-being of people, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if you can't have a logical reasoning to why you're charging somebody, then how do you know why you're charging somebody? Especially the fact is, how does somebody accuse someone of this large amount of money within a 8 to 10 month period? But that would mean there was like $13,000 going to my bank account, and there's no like federal, you know, FinCEN or some type of FBI, you know, jumping at my house. You know, like, that's $13,000 a month you're saying I'm making, and I'm over here on Medicaid and SSI for my youngest, and EBT and stuff for my kids because I got laid off and I had an unemployment claim. How does that make any sense? It's just stupid. So here's some of the closing questions that I have for Eureka's, and this is mainly for Eureka, and I'm just letting Eureka know that the deposits in my account were lawful. There were wages from my unemployment benefits to support my kids and Ethan's on SSI for his Phelan-McDermid. Why was I never allowed to present this under oath or show this on the record before any accusations? If me and my wife both had equal access, which is what joint account is, why wasn't both owners treated equally? You know, why wasn't Nathan put on the block or put on the chair when I'm over here waving around the receipts? Like, no one will ever answer these questions, and that's why I will never favor Austin Hoffman of being anything near any type of person's safety or children's safety. You know, when you can't even give a reasoning to your choices of why you choose to prosecute somebody, while leaving the other person that's equally liable out on the whim, or not even allow a father to defend his family, what benefit would you have to our state? And that goes for everybody who thinks this way. That's why the jury ultimately acquitted Kyle, because, hello, you didn't question me, so there's two people on the bank account that you're sitting here saying it's evidence. How is it evidence and not evidence at the same time? Like, how am I innocent? I don't get that. I'm still waiting for how you came to that conclusion that I'm innocent and my wife is guilty at the same time. So the underlying question is, when the state can silence the co-owner of property while accusers get special access to the family and ignore a federal unemployment victory by me, all at the same time, does that still qualify as due process and equal protection in the Constitution? Did I get any due process or rights? Is that what American procedures is about? Like, for me, I didn't care that my bank account was looked through. I just want a fair shake. That's all I wanted, you know, a fair shake to show my receipts. But when you make a mistake and you're quick to draw the gun and not ask questions first before you make an assumption or accusation later, and you're trying to destroy a family that we worked hard to build, and now we're going in and making an investment in the town again. Luckily, you know, the claim I used to pay for the lawyer, you know, which is irony. And two, like I said, we're opening up a restaurant again, and I don't want any type of accusations coming about again. So this is why I'm making the video, to let everybody know my wife is not a thief. My family is no thief. And when people don't allow all the pieces of the puzzle to come about, like bananas and rice, like, you know, Tim Walt's reasoning, how property can both matter to one owner but not matter to the other owner, when the one owner is waving the receipts around and is constantly trying to say, hey, you know, this owner is mad because I lost, and they're just trying to give whatever reasoning they possibly can, special permissions to somebody, to somebody, without that person being law enforcement or deputized, you know, speaking to Kyle's mother about a case, you know, allowing a joint account being treated as a single account, allowing lawful income funds just being guesstimated as stolen without being segregated and traced, and the proper professionals being notified. Someone can get hurt, and I don't want it to happen to any other Eureka. And you know, we're Americans, and if you can't give me reason, then just give me my rights back. Give me reason or give me my rights. And property can't commit a crime, the account can't commit a crime, people commit a crime. And if I'm innocent and Kyle's guilty, then please someone tell me, how does that make sense? Thank you for listening. Have a good day.